When Abigail prevented David from taking innocent lives, she said to him, "My Lord's life will be kept close in the satchel of life with Yahweh your God." If you go to a shop and buy a piece of fine china, the salesperson will wrap it up really carefully so that you can get it home in one piece. Now, if we read in Psalm 72 and verse 13, talking about Jesus Christ, it says, "He will save the lives of those in need." And in verse 14, "Their lives will be precious in his sight." Because our lives are so precious, the Lord keeps us wrapped up carefully in the bag of life. So we're very precious in God's sight, but we're facing into very difficult times with food insecurity. So how is God going to keep us in the bag of life? If we go to the past and look at how God dealt with this problem then, we can have faith that he'll do the same for us today. In 1 Kings chapter 17, this is the story of Elijah the prophet. He was told to go to Zarephath, to the widow. She had one handful of flour and a little drop of oil. That was it, and then that was the end of her food. But Elijah said to her, "Make him a little cake, because God said in 1 Kings 17 and verse 14, 'The jar of meal shall not waste, or the bottle of oil fail, until the day that the Lord makes it rain on the earth.'" And that proved to be true. She didn't have any luxuries, but she had enough. In a couple of chapters later, chapter 19, Jezebel had threatened to kill Elijah, so he ran away, which was a sensible thing to do. He went way south of Israel to Beersheba, and then he went even further, a day's journey into the desert, about 20 miles. Now this was a good place to hide, but the problem was that there's no food, no shops, no water. What was he going to do? Well, he just fell exhausted under a tree. But an angel woke him up, and in chapter 19 and verse 6, Elijah looked, and behold, there was a cake baked on the coals and a bottle of water at his head. And that food kept him going. Now, it was good food. It was a nice cake straight out of the oven. Really good food. If you want to read the rest of the story, it's lovely. It's chapter 19 of 1 Kings. If we go to Elisha now, in 2 Kings chapter 4, Elisha comes to Gilgal, where there were a lot of prophets, sons of the prophets, and there was a famine. So they went out into the field to try and find something to put into a stew. And they came across this wild vine which had gourds on it. They'd never cooked it before, but of course they didn't need to, because before they'd already had plenty of wheat and what have you. So they put this into the cooking pot, and when they came to eat it, they realized it was poisonous. So they cried out to Elisha, "What are we going to do?" Elisha puts a handful of flour into the pot. Well, now, obviously, that's not going to deal with any poison, but miraculously, the food becomes edible. And then a bit further down in that chapter, a bit later on, the same famine, somebody brought Elisha 20 loaves of barley. Now, that wouldn't feed very many in those days because they ate a lot of bread. But Elisha said to his servant, "Give it to the men that they can eat." But the servant said, "How can I set this before 100 hungry men?" But Elisha said, "Just give it to them, because the Lord has said, they shall be fed and have some left over." And so it proved to be. Well, this was similar to the miracles that Jesus did with feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish. If God could do this in the past, he can do it for us. There will always be enough food if we have faith. Now, the Holy Spirit will bring these stories back to our mind, give us the faith, and that will give us courage and strength to get through these difficult times. They're not too difficult just yet, but they possibly will be. And I must admit to being a little bit worried about you, but I know the Lord will look after you because you are very precious. He'll take care of you. So God bless, and thank you for watching.